A key Russian general killed in Moscow by Ukrainian intelligence. Tensions flare between Turkey and the West. And mass graves of unprecedented scale uncovered in Syria. This and more coming up on Dangerous Waters. This is the Dangerous Waters podcast where we dive deep into dangerous waters. I'm your host today. My name's Alex, and we have a lot to talk about. Major news with major implications. Let's get started. Our first story of the day is we have a Russian general who was just killed in Moscow by Ukrainian intelligence. The man in question is Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, who was also the head of Russia's nuclear, biological, and chemical troops. This was a man who was responsible for a lot of things. On the Ukrainian side, he was responsible for chemical weapon development and deployment on Ukrainian troops. He was also responsible for trying to expose the West, including Ukraine and the United States, for biolaboratory research happening in Ukraine. And at the same time, he was responsible for weapons development of new platforms such as the Russian TOS-2 thermobaric chemical weapons. So what does this mean? This general was a very crucial figure in the Russian military. He has been featured many times in Ministry of Defense posts and notifications, and he has played a very active role in the war effort. However, the day before he was bombed by Ukraine, he was put on Ukraine's sort of watch list, which essentially said that he was responsible for multiple chemical weapons attacks from the Russian side against Ukrainian troops. And then today we see the bombing. Now, an interesting detail about this man is that he was very focused, and one of his main goals during the war was to collect evidence of Western collusion, of Ukrainian collusion, in performing the same types of things that he was responsible for himself. The Russian Ministry of Defense produced a lot of slideshows and a lot of infographics showcasing alleged evidence of Ukrainian chemical weapons development, as well as US-funded biolaboratory research of dangerous pathogens in Ukraine. This was a key part of the Russian rationale at one point in justifying the invasion of Ukraine, and it has been a strong talking point among the pro-Russian side of the equation as to why they would go into Ukraine in the first place, outside of the geopolitical and historical context that Putin generally sees the conflict under. People have tried to justify it by saying Ukraine, using America-backed research, is funding dangerous biochemical weapons development, and we need to go in and invade Ukraine to stop it from happening. And this man, Igor Kirillov, was a major part in progressing Russian narratives in this direction and trying to show links between different groups, most of it being open source research, but sometimes they would have access to certain alleged documents from the Ukrainian side after capturing facilities. Now, the veracity or the legitimacy of these documents are in question. It's hard to say, but he did play a strong role in perpetrating these types of narratives on the pro-Russian side. So this could be one of the reasons why he was so strongly targeted, as we really haven't been seeing as many political assassinations of Russians in Moscow, at least during the past couple of months. So this is such a high-profile killing, and the killing of him in particular by Ukrainian spies really sends a message. It sends a message to Russia that even their closest are not safe. Always keep a lookout. But the real question now is, what will happen from the Russian side? How will Russia retaliate to this event? So far, we have Dmitry Medvedev. I can't really pronounce his name that well, but he is saying that a crucial figure in Russian politics, former president actually, and he's saying that Russia will not stand idly by. They will pay very dearly for what just happened this morning. As for the technical details of the assassination itself. What happened was he and his assistant were walking out of a building, and suddenly there was a electric scooter rigged with explosives that exploded within their vicinity, which ended up claiming both of their lives. This was captured on webcam video. It was captured on photo imagery, on surveillance cameras, and a very high profile killing, very high risk as well. So we'll see what eventually comes out of this in the future. For our next topic, we have a big one here. We have new tensions flaring up between Turkey and the West. Turkey, after recently consolidating a lot of gains and empowering the HTS to take over the Assad regime, has now put its focus on the Kurds and the SDF, or Syrian Democratic Forces, in Syria. Turkey has already had a history of sending artillery and drone strikes into Kurdish-backed areas, but at this point, they are really pushing it forward. They are accumulating a military buildup of troops and weapons in the regions north of Syria on Turkey's southern border, and at the same time, the HTS appears to be echoing similar moves. This is putting the Kurds in a position where they may be imminently attacked, according to U.S. sources. The U.S. also has 900 troops in the area, all of which are under risk in the potential of a Turkish offensive in Kurdish-backed lands. The SDF, for context, is a U.S.-backed coalition of mostly Kurdish ethnic minorities. They are there and were powered by the U.S. to help with the Defeat ISIS mission, and they have a permanent stronghold taking control of the northeastern side of Syria. Now, this group of people have been going through a lot recently in terms of public reputation. At first, they were seen as an anti-Assad resistance and had more popularity, but now because of the HTS's ability to completely take control of Syria, they are seen as less popular and more of an extension of U.S. imperialist interests. But at the same time, this group, the SDF, and the Kurds in extension, they want sovereignty. They've been fighting a long time to get a nation of their own. They haven't been able to do it despite having millions of them centered in that area around Syria as well as parts of Turkey, but no developments in terms of statehood. Recently, we also received a response from the Israeli Foreign Ministry about the events happening on the Turkish side and the Turkish complaints about Israeli interests and settlers taking over parts of the Golan Heights. To put it simply, Israel is drawing a line in the sand. They are supporting the Kurds and the US-backed positions in Syria, while at the same time criticizing Turkey for their advancements into Syria as well. I'll read a couple of quotes from the statement. It says, quote, "Turkey has systematically encroached on Syrian territory, a process that began with military operations in 2016, 2018, and 2019, and continues to this day. It also says that approximately 15% of Syria's territory is under the control of Turkish-backed forces. They also blame Turkey for supporting jihadist forces that operate against Kurds in Syria and blame them for launching military bombardments on Kurdish infrastructure. They also say that the last country that can speak about occupation in Syria is Turkey, with 15% of Syria's territory under the control of proxies under its patronage." Let's talk about what's going on at home. We have a massive update to Trump's newest criminal court case in which he had 34 felony convictions over the hush money scandal. This was prosecuted, and the Judge Merchan, has recently filed a new motion which does not dismiss the charges against Trump as was expected based off of the Supreme Court ruling of presidential immunity. Instead, he holds off the case indefinitely until Trump finishes his term in office, and the criminal prosecution may continue after Trump leaves office. Now, it's hard to say whether this will hold in the appeals court, but if it does, it means that Trump may still face jail time after he is done with his presidential term. a lot of mixed feelings about this. Obviously, you have Trump allies, which are calling Judge Merchan a complete fraud, unblind to true justice and corruption, while people who are against Trump are saying that this is a great win for the legal system and for accountability. Now, the actual conclusion of this case may be soon, may be far off, but ultimately what this shows is that this is a drag on incoming President Trump's administration and on his personal life. They really want to drag this case out for as long as possible to see the kind of damage that it can create on Trump. Trump has been through a lot in his campaign, going through all sorts of legal cases, but this is going to continue and be a problem. Trump actually recently just came out with a response in which he criticizes the judge and says that he is still under gag order and therefore cannot expose the judge's family connections and potential corruption in the case. Finally, for our last major headline, we have a school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin, this time perpetrated by a 15-year-old girl named Natalie Rupnow. The shooting itself resulted in a teacher and a teenage student being killed, while there are also 6 other people injured, 2 in critical condition. A teacher and 3 other students also received non-life-threatening injuries. Based on reporting by investigative journalist Andy Ngo, he says that the perpetrator, Natalie, was a major feminist and extremely anti-men, in which she actually claimed she wanted to kill all men. She had a eerie obsession with the Columbine shooting and made a lot of references to media that was made in response to the shooting. She also posted online about being happy for getting a pistol on her birthday, and at the same time, during the day of the shooting, she posted a picture on X in which she was in a bathroom stall and had an OK hand signal on the picture. Now, clearly, this is someone who was mentally disturbed and had a strong history of being so, which leads me to believe that she was on some kind of federal radar before the shooting, considering her online activity and considering the type of interests that she held. Now, Democrats have been really quick to jump on this as an opportunity to push for further gun control in the country. I haven't really been seeing as much news about this on the Republican side. At first, they were saying there were possibilities that the shooter was trans, but as of now, that turns out to not be the case. She does not appear to self-identify as trans, but she did go by an alias known as Samantha. Let's get into the rapid-fire news. For our first headline, we have a mass grave of unprecedented scale uncovered in Syria. This is in the outskirts of Damascus, and people are saying conservative estimates that there are over 100,000 bodies in the grave, most of these probably being people that Assad did not like, political enemies, enemies of the regime, and it really goes to show the level and the extent of the type of actions that Assad was making during his rule and in order to maintain his power on Syria. Germany's government has also just collapsed in a no-confidence vote with new elections to be held next year. It's looking more and more likely that Friedrich Merz of the Christian Democratic Union, which is a conservative party, will be coming into power as the next chancellor of Germany. He will take a more hardline stance on immigration. Reports of new U.S. airstrikes on Yemen, the first being an attack on the Ministry of Defense building, a quote-unquote command and control center in Sana'a, Syria, where the Houthis are headquartered. Additional confirmation on new U.S. strikes in the port city of Hodeidah, Yemen. Another Russian oil tanker appears to be in distress after sending a distress signal, but so far there has been no structural damage or oil spillage reported as of yet. Finally, the latest congressional spending bill has not been finalized yet, with a vote coming in as soon as Thursday and potential government shutdown looming on Friday. With that being said, thank you all so much for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more. Thanks for sticking around, and stay tuned for the next one.